and welcome to Colombian Jukebox, a space dedicated to culture and independent music made by Colombians. My name is Rebecca Liloy. A while ago, I wrote a blog post about 5 books you should read to learn more about Colombian culture. At the time, I couldn't get around to making the video, so here I am. Reading makes a very important part of my life, and I've chosen 5 books that run the gamut from historical fiction to memoirs to graphic novels that I think are a good selection for you to understand a little bit more about Colombian culture and why things move the way that they do. All of the books that I have selected for this edition are in Spanish, so if you are interested in living in Colombia and learning Spanish, this might be a good incentive to begin your learning process. So the first book for this selection is El Árbol de Guayacán by Dani Alejandro Hoyos. If you are familiar with Colombian comedy, you might know him for his personality as Suso el Paspi. It's fiction, but based on a very real and sad episode in Danny's life. He lost his grandfather during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's a retelling of his memories growing up with his grandfather up until the very last moments he shared with him at the hospital. I enjoyed the book for many reasons. I think it really captured how families that were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic dealt with the lacking medical infrastructure in Colombia. He creates a connection with the reader, generating empathy. He depicts emotions like anger, rage, impotence, even apathy that we can all relate to and that we can all understand. His memories with his grandfather are among my favorites. In the book, El Nieto, or the grandchild, is a big city kid from Medellin, and he would go and visit his grandfather in Ituango, which was very, very, very far away. It's a small town, I don't know, at the time maybe 9 or 10 hours away from Medellin, and he naturally would try to make friends with the children in his grandfather's neighborhood, and he wasn't able to fit in. They spoke a different social language. The games were different, the way that they dressed were different, the way that they walked were different, and so he had a really hard time fitting in. And that kind of reminded me of my experiences visiting my family in Cartagena when I was a kid. The book also does a great job at showing the effects of the arms conflict in Colombia, which is something that is not shown in a lot of the mass media. They show a lot of the current illicit trade problems that we have here in Colombia, but very little focus is given on the armed conflict that has caused a lot of people to be relocated to the bigger cities. The book is also a reminder to fans of entertainers. There is this sense that social media has created that we really know who the person that we see on the screen is. And we forget that those are just entertainers that we're seeing, and that there's a real human behind that face that they are choosing to show you. In the book, El Nieto, or the grandchild, is a comedian also, and so he would receive horrific news, and moments later he would have to show face on camera and make people laugh and forget about the problems that he was also dealing with. And I thought that that was great, because we forget that there's a human, a real human behind entertainers. And so, El Árbol de Guayacán, strongly recommended. The next book is a historical novel written by Gustavo Arango. It is called Santa María del Diablo. It is the first historical novel about the first Spanish city in tierra firme. Lots of firsts there. Santa María de la Antigua del Darién. It won Best Historical Novel in 2014 by the International Latino Book Awards. So we all know what happened in 1492. Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue with his 3 boats, La Niña, La Pinta, y La Santa María. And then we learn about the horrific conquests made by Hernan Cortés and the indigenous tribes in Mexico, and we learn about Pizarro and his horrendous acts with the Inca Empire in Peru. But there's a space between 1492 and when these other conquistadors set the world on fire. And that happens in Santa Maria de la Antigua del Darién. A lot, if not most, of the conquistadors begin their story in this area. The protagonists of this novel are Pedro Arias Dávila and Vasco Núñez de Balboa. It's a retelling alternating between Fernández de Oviedo and a present-day historian. Personally, I enjoy descriptive authors that take their time to paint the picture. And this book is very descriptive, so some parts are really difficult to get through because it's very violent and very gory. But there are also parts that describe animals and the vegetation and the food, and you can almost feel and taste the air and the sweat and the blood. So that's the part that I enjoyed the most, aside from it really giving an explanation as to why the political dynamics of Latin America are so colorful. So I often find myself asking why things work the way they do here in Colombia, and that is the beginning of a really good answer. I've always said it's not really our fault. The things that happened are learned traits that we got from the other side of the world. Santa Maria del Diablo by Gustavo Arango. Great read. Go check it out. The next book is He visto la noche by Manuel Zapata Olivella. I think Manuel Zapata Olivella has to be the most overlooked author, underrated author that there is in Colombia. He was a doctor, a journalist, and an author from Cartagena, and he is a very important Black figure in Colombian history. He visto la noche is his account. It's a memoir of his visit to Jim Crow America in the 1950s. His trip started in Mexico. He was supposed to go and report on the atomic bomb tests in Bikini Atoll, and things just didn't work out the way that they were supposed to. He ends up traveling to the United States, like many people do, on the top of the trains. It is a really detailed account of his experiences in this time period. I didn't know how deep identity politics ran in the US until I began living in Colombia. I'm not saying that there aren't identity politics in Colombia. I'm sure that there are. Of course there are. But they're not the same as in the United States. It's not as tribal as it is in the United States. So this is the story of a Black man traveling through a racially segregated United States. He talks about his experiences with Latinos and with Black Americans, and it gives you a lot of insight on how people of color from Colombia view the racial dynamics of the United States. Manuel Zapata Olivella is a highly recommended author. I have read several of his books, which I'm sure I will talk about in future episodes, in future blog posts. So definitely keep him on your list and on your radar. So the next book is La Cuadra by Gilmer Mesa. It is on a topic that I really don't like to talk about because it's been extensively covered by Hollywood. They took their job very seriously at letting the world know how painful and horrific the 80s and the 90s were in Medellin. I hate talking about it, but I chose this book because it gives a different angle of the violence that was experienced in Colombia in the 80s and 90s, and it just touches upon the cultural and social implications that the violence had in Medellin particularly, and it also covers the role of the woman in this violent dynamic. So a little bit about the author. Gilmer Mesa grew up in Aranjuez, which was one of the most affected areas, neighborhoods in Medellin. He lost his brother due to the violence, and this was his way of making catharsis. He is a university professor at La UPB, which is one of the most reputable universities in the city. So one of my favorite and most important parts of the book is that it shows how important music, particularly salsa, is for the Colombian community. It shows how music can save somebody, how it gives the person a sense of importance, a sense of belonging. There is a lot of salsa in this book. You can hear it. The book opens up with lyrics from Rubén Blades' song Las Calles. Excellent read, very sad, but go ahead and check it out. La Cuadra by Gilmer Mesa. So the last book that I have chosen for this particular series is a graphic novel that I came across while I was on a reading slump. I didn't know what to read. And I was scrolling through Instagram. Bookstagram is great if you're looking for some recommendations. And Las Cosas Que Ya No Están by Tate showed up. It's a story about a young reader on her commute in Bogota. And she is reading Ebe Uhart. And as she is reading the book, she is reminded of a previous relationship that she had. It's a great book if you're looking to start learning Spanish or learning more about Colombian culture, particularly Bogota's culture. Her choice of colors, blue and gray, really hit the spot. Her choice of the rituals and the routines that she chooses to show, getting online to go on to the Transmilenio, things that people say, the architecture, the way that the apartments are structured. It's a really great depiction. And the best part is that it touches upon mental health issues, and the importance of addressing our traumas, which is still a little bit of taboo here in Colombia. I thought that the book was great. Las Cosas Que Ya No Están by Tate. Go check it out. And that's it. That's all I have for you guys. I'm sure that there will be more of these episodes where I am recommending books, so be sure to subscribe and hit that alarm button on the YouTube channel, and I will see you next time with some more stuff. Bye!